Welcome. Congratulations, class of 2017. Very exciting, isn't it? You're awake, right? So the excitement, I'm sure, is met with some trepidation and anxiety. It's all normal. Take a deep breath. Enjoy the next few days. I have a lot of similarities with you. First of all, I'm a graduate, as the dean has stated, I graduated in 1982 with my Bachelor of Arts. May of 1982, my commencement exercise was right here in the Playhouse. 3 months, short months thereafter, I started with the School of Law. So if you do the math, carry the one, it's 32 years ago that I was sitting in your seat. There was 270 students. There were 3 sections, 90 students each. And so we share a lot in common in terms of the number of students that will be starting this class and the fact that I'm standing on the exact stage that I received my diploma undergrad. So in preparing my remarks today, I thought about sitting in your seat 32 years ago. What would I want to hear? What is some advice that I can give you looking back now 32 years? And I've picked on a few areas. The first one I'd like to address with you is called broadening your legal horizons. And I want you to think about that for a second. Because I'm going to ask you to consider broadening your legal horizons both in your legal studies and when you're in your career. When I was in law school, you have your core requisite courses that you take. It's obviously very important to learn things like constitutional law and such. But then you have an opportunity for electives. And as you're looking at your electives, you might sit here today and think, I know what kind of law I'm going to practice. I don't need to take this and I don't need to take that. I implore you to think a little harder about that. Because when I was sitting in your chair, there was no need for me to take family law, not practicing family law. There was no need for me to take administrative law. I'm not doing that. There was no need for me to take labor, and management, and regulatory law. I didn't need any of that. Well, we'll circle around to my point in a little bit. Broaden your legal horizons. Things that may not interest you, why don't you take a look at it and see if it has a smattering of interest. Take it just to broaden your skills. As the dean has pointed out, my legal career, when I graduated law school, it was in 1985 I graduated law school, I decided that I wanted to be a litigator. I really wanted to be in the courtroom, a trial lawyer. And I left Hofstra and I went to a firm in Connecticut where we did plaintiff and defense work. And it was good. It really didn't strike me because, quite frankly, it takes forever to get into court with some litigation. It's really not what I wanted. I moved through my career and I became involved in the criminal justice system. And I've served on both the defense side and the prosecution side. And I've spent the majority of my career as a prosecutor. And I finally found my niche, quite frankly. I liked criminal law. I think I did it well. I feel I made an impact in my county. I feel like I've helped many victims. And I really enjoyed, there was 1 year in which I literally was on trial every 10 days to 2 weeks. And although practicing in a small county, I really got the expertise and experience in trial work and practicing law. From my local prosecutorial job, I went to the state. And then AG Cuomo and I worked together and we prosecuted and investigated some white-collar crime cases, lots of fraud. And it came time when then AG Cuomo became the governor. And he asked me to go into this agency called the Inspector General's office. And I took a leap of faith, not only with our now governor, but I took a leap of faith with my career. And this is my point about broadening your horizons. It would have been very easy for me to stay in prosecution and criminal law. I had been doing it for a number of years. I knew what I was doing. It was safe, it was secure, it was a good life for me. But I decided to go into the Inspector General's office. And at the time, I was the first Deputy Inspector General. The Inspector General soon thereafter, about a year after, went to an ethics agency overseeing the state, and I was elevated quickly, and the governor appointed me the Inspector General. And as Inspector General, you won't believe the law that I now practice. I actually had to write a few things down. Remember all those things I told you I didn't want to take in law school? Guess what I'm doing now? Criminal law, criminal procedure, civil procedure, Constitution, United States and New York State's Constitution, evidence, labor, labor relations, labor and management, administration, corporations, corporate finance, environmental conservation, social services, family law, contracts, varying regulatory laws, and that's just to name a few, and I do this on a daily basis. So when I say to you, broaden your horizons, think about some of the classes that are available, courses that are available to you, really think about it, because you don't know what is going to be on your path and on your journey. Now, the Inspector General, what do I do? Let me tell you what I do. I have the best job ever. I thought I really enjoyed criminal law, both defense and prosecution. This job, by far, is the best I've ever had in my life. I celebrated a birthday a few weeks ago. I'm 54 years old, again, if you do the math. And at 54 years old, I am challenged every day. I love going to work every day, and I like to think I'm very good at it. What is the Inspector General? I have jurisdiction over every state employee, state agency, state authority, board, commission, any state funding, or anybody doing business with the state of New York. I investigate you for fraud, waste, abuse, corruption, criminal activity. At the conclusion of my investigations, what I do is I either refer the matter to an agency for corporate counseling and discipline, which could also include termination, or I refer to my prosecutorial partners, and I partner with state, local, federal prosecutors to bring criminal cases. That, in a nutshell, is what I do. Extremely exciting. In addition to that mandate, I also have jurisdiction over 22 criminal laboratories in the state of New York. These criminal laboratories receive federal funding, and as part of the grant money that they receive, they have to designate an independent investigatory agency. That is me. So if there is any allegation as to serious misconduct or negligence in any one of those criminal laboratories, I and my team go in, we take a look at it, and we root out the corruption, the fraud, and we take the corrective measures in the laboratories. Recently, I've issued reports, if anyone hears of Nassau County 2011, there was a very large investigation, a public investigation of the Nassau Crime Lab. And a few months ago, I issued a report on the New York City's Office of Chief Medical Examiner's office. Very complex technical matters, but that's also areas I have jurisdiction over. I also have jurisdiction recently. There's this little bridge being built over the Hudson River. You may have heard of it. The Tappan Zee Bridge is going to come down in 2018 because there's a new bridge being built. It is under the auspices of the New York State Thruway Authority, of which I have jurisdiction of the authority. In addition, there's state money that's involved in the building of the bridge, as well as federal funding. It's a $3.9 billion bridge that is being built. And I, with my federal IG counterparts, are overlooking the bridge project. It is a fascinating project. It is what's called design-build contract, which as you move through your legal studies, you'll learn what that means. It's the largest design-build contract going on, and it's the largest bridge being built in the world today. And me, a little old Hofstra grad, is right there in the middle of it. Very exciting times. So, in addition, by the way, of being the Inspector General, I'm also the Welfare Inspector General of the state of New York. And what that is I oversee the delivery of social service systems throughout the state of New York by the local municipalities, and to ensure that if there's any recipient fraud, I root out that kind of fraud, and if there's delivery issues, I take care of those delivery issues. What makes my job most exciting is it really has taken my career, both as a civil litigator, both in the criminal law system, as well as prosecution, criminal law, and it really has come together. Because what I do is, in addition to conducting investigations and rooting out the ways, fraud, and abuse, one of the things I do, and the opportunity I have that makes a difference in the state of New York, is I also sit with a particular agency or authority of which I've just conducted an investigation for the purposes of taking corrective action. Let me just give you 2 examples, and maybe you've heard them, and maybe you haven't. Within the last year, my office, we discovered that there was criminality in a huge ring involving our New York State Department of Motor Vehicles, CDL, which is your commercial driver's license. There was a scheme going on. And the one thing I always rely upon is the stupidity of the defendants to help me do my job. Truly. So what happened is, the scheme was, you wanted your CDL, and for whatever reason you decided you can't get it, you can't take the test, or do whatever. So they would contact a person who knew all the answers to the test, because Department of Motor Vehicle only had 2 tests. And you would go in to the Department of Motor Vehicles, it was in downtown Manhattan, New York City, and you would get a copy of the test, and a state security officer who was in charge of the DMV offices would allow you to slip out the door, hand your test over to the person who knew all the answers. They would write in all the answers, and they hand the test, and you'd run back in, and you'd hand it to the clerk, and you'd get your CDL. Mind-boggling, isn't it? That it's that easy? They were making thousands and thousands of dollars. This had been going on for years. And it's outrageous because the security of our roads and our highway system, not only in New York State, but all of the United States, was in question, because you had people who didn't get the proper CDL by taking the test and weren't appropriately licensed. That was the case. It was very large, because we dealt with not only my office, and I was the lead agency. We dealt obviously with the Department of Motor Vehicles, the New York City Police Department, the United States Homeland Security, the Immigration Customs Enforcement, Federal U.S. DOTIG, Department of Transportation Inspector General, United States Department of Labor. There were a lot of agencies that came together. At the end of the day, in excess of 40 people were arrested and prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District, as well as the Manhattan DA. And I also had the opportunity to sit down with the state agency. When you sit down with the state agency, you lay out the investigation, and now we've taken the criminals off the street. But we have to stop this from happening again and make sure that folks who are getting their CDLs are appropriately getting their CDLs, and that our roads are safe. And I implemented new rules and procedures that when you now go for your CDL, there's a process in place, hopefully it's foolproof, that was enacted throughout the state of New York. So when I tell you I have the best job in the world, so I'm helping investigate, prosecute cases, and now I'm working with the state agencies to take corrective measures in making a difference not only for DMV and those who are working for DMV, but for everybody in the roads of New York State and the United States. That is exciting work. Another area that just to bring to your attention why I love my job so much, category. There was a state agency that had hundreds of cars that were given to heads of the agency. And there was a time in state government that it was necessary for these individuals to have the cars. But I conducted an analysis which discovered that it was not necessary anymore. So the cars, I had to talk to the state agency, again, to take the corrective measures, call these cars in, reassign them out, and then I sat with Governor's Counsel's office, and we crafted a new state vehicle policy for the state of New York, which would then be promulgated and implemented to all the state agencies and state authorities. And that's what I did around Thanksgiving of last year. It saves the state of New York, by putting this new state vehicle policy and taking those cars and reassigning them out, millions of dollars. And again, a little old 1985 Hofstra grad did all that. This is why my job is so exciting. So, I never thought, when I was sitting in your seats, that 32 years later, I was going to be the Inspector General for the state of New York, or the Welfare Inspector General for the state of New York. In your legal studies, keep an open mind, and when you choose your career path, keep an open mind. Don't pigeonhole yourself, because by doing so, you might be closing the door of opportunity for something that is so challenging and extremely rewarding. Another area I would just like to give you some advice on is the area of science and technology. By all measures, look, I'm a dinosaur in this area. My kids can do more than I can do, quite frankly. But if you're going to be having a career in investigations like I'm in, you have to stay on top of the technology. You know, my favorite is when someone tells me on emails that, you know, well, I've deleted it, so it's gone. No, it's not. I have a computer forensic lab that I started through my agency, state-of-the-art. I have computer forensic experts that work with me. They educate me as I go along, because we never stop learning, that's for sure. And there's always a footprint somewhere. We just got to find out where that footprint is. And I'm going to tell you, in my investigations, it's unbelievable to me how much people email and what they put in those emails. Little advice, don't email private stuff. But anyway, that's one of the ways I'm able to conduct very successful investigations. But it's more than that. It's more than emails. You know, I've got the cloud. We've got Twitter, tweets, Kicks, you name it. I've got to stay on the technology curve. If you're going into anything with litigation, the court system, we're on e-discovery. You have to know these things. Whether you go into the public sector or the private sector, there are going to be programs that you have to learn and know well so you can do your jobs. An evolving area, two areas that I'm staying on top of, because it really is balancing. There's a lot of law coming down in this area, balancing governmental intrusion with personal privacy rights, having to do with GPS and cell phones. As part of investigations that I conduct, we have GPS we put on cars. We surveil cars with GPS. And there's a growing and evolving area regarding GPS law. In fact, one of the cases we were involved in back in 2010, I just want to point out I wasn't there at the time, it was an adverse ruling because they put GPS on a person's private vehicle and didn't have some of the redactions or stringencies that should have been surrounding to protect personal privacy rights. Had I been there at the time, I would have obtained a search warrant to do that. But we've changed some of the systems in state government, which I've been part of, in which very clearly we mandate if anybody's working in the state, you're in a state vehicle. And again, as I said to you, this is a state vehicle policy, which puts people on notice that there is no personal privacy rights when you're driving around a state vehicle, and I can put GPS on it just to surveil you if necessary. So, in keeping up with the law, it teaches me and helps me on how I can conduct my investigations. Another technology area is cell phones. Cell phones are mini computers. When you start looking at the law on this, it's very interesting. Some of our judges, you look at the different departments, and so they're all over the place and trying to define the governmental intrusion as it relates to cell phone. And another area are cell phone tower dumps and triangulation. We'll get into the details, but basically it's an incredible investigatory tool, and we're constantly watching and balancing the governmental intrusion with the personal privacy rights. In terms of the science, I indicated to you that I oversee 22 labs in the state of New York if there's serious misconduct or negligence. But one of the things you're going to find in your careers as a lawyer, you have to know the underlying matter before you can litigate it. I have to know the underlying matter before I can comment on something. Again, I put out reports, Monroe, which is Rochester, Onondaga County, which is Syracuse, 2 labs out there. I have state police reports out, the chief medical examiner in Nassau County, where I really had to learn matters like DNA and latent prints and hair and fiber, and you have to know the science behind it. You have to know how a lab is working. You have to know proficiency testing, the machines and the tools that they're using in the labs. If you are going into this field, investigations, criminal law, you have to be on top of the labs and what's going on in the labs and the science that's behind it. There's a thing called fry hearing. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave that for you to figure out later, but you don't want to do one, is all I have to say. So that's the second area. The third area, I just wanted to briefly mention to you, ethics. Ethics is what I do every day. Ethics, I hold state employees, agencies, and such accountable. You, as lawyers, you must comport yourself in a manner that is moral and ethical. You are part of a profession that's larger than just you. I would say to you, act in a manner that would make your mother proud, right? There is no walking a line. There is no fudging. There is no shooting from the hip. You do your job, and you do it well, and you do it ethically. It is unfortunate in the course of my job that I do come across attorneys, doctors, nurses, professional folks who become sloppy, who become abusive, who become criminal. And in addition to conducting my investigations, I have to refer them to their appropriate committees or commissions. It's not something I take pride in, but it's something I have to do because the integrity of those professions relies upon the fact that we root out those who do not believe in ethics. It seems easier as I'm saying it, but it really requires you, in addition to knowing the law of your case and knowing how to manage your case, that you also know the ethics and the rules that govern you as you proceed as lawyers. The last piece of advice I'd like to give to you, which the Provost and the Dean have already spoke to, is that avail yourself of the opportunities that Hofstra Law has made available to you. You will get out of law school what you put into it, whether it's with your studies, whether it's with your career guidance and career centers. I will tell you, as an employer, I see resumes that should never be sent out. If you need help, seek guidance and seek help. I would also encourage you to utilize internship programs. I love receiving resumes that have internship programs on them, because it shows me that in addition to your legal studies, you've taken the time to go out and engage in actually the practice of law. This is also my time to give a shameless plug that I have a robust internship program at the Inspector General's office, and I'm a little partial to Hofstra folks. So I've actually had many Hofstra students come intern with me. I have my main office is in Albany, where I operate out of Albany. I have an office in Manhattan, right across from the Bull on Wall Street. Pretty much half of my staff is split between Albany and Manhattan. I also have a Buffalo office. I have a Suffolk, New York office, which is staffed to oversee the bridge project that I just told you about. And I have a Hawk office. I've had a Hofstra students come and intern. We have, and I'd like to thank, because we have a very robust program in the summer. It's an 8-week program where I do not put you in a room and give you a project to do. You are out. You're out with my investigators, you're out with my auditors, you're out with my investigative counsel, you're researching law, you're on surveillances. It's a lot of fun too. So I encourage you, if this interests you, let me know. And I'm more than happy to set something up. The other thing I want to mention to you is that you are now part of a larger community. It's the alumni community. In addition to having the resources of Hofstra, you have the resources of alumni. I'm here today because I'm an 82 and an 85 graduate. I love this place. I spent 7 years here. I love walking around this place. I love going to the Hofstra Law School. I love coming and speaking to you. If you need guidance, if you need mentoring, if you need help, I offer my services to you. I have a woman who's in my office that is also a Hofstra Law graduate who doesn't know it yet, but tomorrow I'm promoting her into my executive management. She feels the same way I do. So I welcome whatever it is that I can do for you, but I remind you that when you graduate in 2017, you pay it back as well, right? So those are the 4 areas I wanted to talk to you today and providing advice. I wish you the best of luck in all your future endeavors. I congratulate you. And if there's anything that I could ever do for you personally, just let me know. Thank you.